Hi, hello everyone. Hello English readers. Welcome to this new live read along of Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. I'm Lydie Bureau and I am an English teacher in France. I'm also the founder of Lydie's Book Club, and in which I host live readings of adaptations of classics of English literature, but also contemporary novels. And I tend to prioritize my the choice of my books, of the books that we read. I tend to pick books that are written by women, but the members of the book club also can choose the next book, the next book that we will be reading. I also once a week we meet live via Zoom to discuss the chapters read over the week, and we also talk about books in general and learning English. And today we are going to read the second section of the novel. So it's from page 19 to 25, if I'm right. Yes, 19 to 25. And if you want to know more about Virginia Woolf and Mrs. Dalloway, I invite you to listen to the podcast episode 17, an introduction to Virginia Woolf and Mrs. Dalloway, that is coming out next week. So you have to be a little bit patient before that. Hi, hello guys. Thank you for joining this live. So as I was saying, we are reading section 2, so pages 19 to 25. And if you haven't read the first section, thank you. Hello. I hope you had a good day. So if you haven't read the first section, I invite you to watch my live reading on YouTube, the replay of the live reading of the first section that is available only on YouTube. That's a new thing now. Now it's going to be only if you a regular of my live readings. They're now only available on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. Yeah. So if you don't want to miss any live readings, then you can subscribe to my channel. And this way you will get a little notification once the new live reading is live. It's available. Yeah. So before I start reading the second section, I'm just going to do a quick recap of what happened in section 1. So we meet Mrs. Clarissa Dalloway in the first, at the beginning of this novel. She is out and about in Bond Street, on Bond Street. It's a high street, very famous high street at the center, at the very heart of London. And she is out to get the flowers that she ordered at her florist called Mrs. Pym. And she on the way, on her walk, she is thinking about Burton, her childhood house, the country house where she used to spend time, and where she grew up when she was young. And there she had two good friends, Hugh and Peter Walsh. And Hugh, I forgot his last name. Hugh something. And Peter Walsh. Hugh is a less important character. So I guess I forgot. I know it's somewhere, but I can't find it. Anyway, you and Peter. So she's thinking about them and how much fun they had together and how extravagant is you. And she's also thinking about the fact that she rejected Peter when he proposed, and she's actually not quite, she doesn't regret that choice. Actually, she is quite happy with this choice because she realizes that when they were young, they were always quarreling, so they were always arguing. And with Richard, she didn't have that. Well, they don't have much because in the end, well, she's actually happy with the fact that she has some space, and Richard actually gives her that space, and they don't really argue about things actually. So it's actually, she's quite happy in that sense, but she is quite but in a way she likes to quarrel with Peter because he's challenging her and he's at her level in a way. And it's also a good thing to argue, not agreeing. That means that there is communication in a way, and there is communication, yes. And there is an exchange between two people. They actually are engaging, whereas ignoring each other or avoiding conflict is not necessarily a good thing. Yeah. Anyway, so she's thinking about this, about her daughter, Elizabeth, Elizabeth. And she mentions her and the fact that Miss Kilman is not a nice, I mean, she doesn't really like Miss Kilman. She is, I would say, maybe the housekeeper. Oh, sorry. She's the housekeeper, and she also looks after her daughter, but she doesn't quite get on well with her. Yeah. And she actually described her as a monster, which is quite harsh. Yeah. And as she's thinking about all of these things, so she's jumping from one idea to another, one thought to another, and it can be a little bit confusing, and the pace is quite fast in some parts of the text. And at some point there is a big noise. She's in the shop and there is a big noise, and it's actually the Prime Minister's car that is passing by, and everyone is looking at the car, and everyone is wondering whose car is this. And actually we find out that it's the Prime Minister's car. Yeah. So now let's continue part 2. Sorry, I'm going to go a little bit. Okay. Septimus Warren Smith, who found himself unable to move, heard the man speak. 30, pale-faced, wearing brown shoes and an old coat. Septimus Warren Smith had that worried look in his brown eyes that makes complete strangers feel worried too. Everything on Bond Street had come to a stop. No traffic could get past the grey car outside Mulberry's. So that Mulberry's is the florist. Mrs. Dalloway, coming to the window with her arms full of flowers, looked out. Everyone looked at the car. Septimus looked. There it stood, the blinds pulled down, and on them a strange pattern like a tree. Septimus thought, watching in terror. Everything slowly came together into one center before his eyes, as if some horror was just below the surface, about to break through. It is I who am in the way, he thought. Wasn't he being looked at and pointed at? Wasn't he rooted to the pavement for a purpose? But for what purpose? Let's go on, Septimus, said his wife, a little Italian woman with large eyes in a pointed face. But Rezia herself could not help looking at the car and its blinds pulled down. Was it the Queen in there, going shopping? Come on, said Rezia. But her husband, come on, said Rezia. But her husband, for they had been married 5 years, jumped and said, all right, angrily, as if she had interrupted him. People must notice, Rezia thought. Looking at the crowd, staring at their grey car, she admired English people with their children and their horses and their clothes, but they were just people now, because Septimus had said, I will kill myself. It was an awful thing to say. Suppose they had heard. She looked at the crowd. Help! Help! She wanted to cry out to the butcher's boys and the women. Help! Only last autumn, she and Septimus had stood by the river, wrapped in the same cloak, laughing. But one must hide failure. She must take him away into some park. Now we will cross, she said. She had a right to his arm, though he gave it to her without feeling. What he gave her, though, she was so young and simple, only 24, without friends in England, and had left Italy for his sake, was only a piece of bone. The car, with its blinds down, hiding a person of the greatest importance, perhaps the Queen, the Prince or Prime Minister, advanced towards Piccadilly, solemn, mysterious. It is probably the Queen, thought Mrs. Dalloway, coming out of Mulberry's with her flowers. The Queen is going to visit some hospital. The Queen is going to open some church fete, thought Clarissa. Slowly and silently, the car went on its way, carrying that very great person whom history would remember, to light a spark among you, Whitbread, that was his name, Whitbread, and the gentlemen of England that night in Buckingham Palace. And Clarissa, too, was giving a party. She stood a little straighter, as if standing ready to greet her guests at the top of her stairs. The car had gone, but it had caused a tiny wave which rolled up Bond Street. For 30 seconds, all heads were turned to the same way, and in all the hat shops and glove shops, Strangers looked at each other and thought of their king, their country, the dead. Remember, this is just after the war. So it's still very present in people's mind, where the war is still very present. And all the people, all the soldiers who died. A small crowd, meanwhile, had gathered at the gate of Buckingham Palace. Poor people, all of them, waiting to see the car. The Queen might pass by and look at them. Or the Prince. The Prince might be coming along in the morning to visit his mother. Sarah Bletchley said. Oh, in the morning to visit her mother. Sarah Bletchley said, with her baby in her arms. Suddenly, the sound of an airplane filled their ears. There it was coming over the trees, letting out with smoke behind it, writing something, making letters in the sky. Everyone looked up. But what letters? What was it? A C? An E? Then an L? The letters moved and melted up in the sky. Then the airplane flew further away, and in a fresh space of sky began writing a K and E. A Y, perhaps? Glaxo? Someone said, Creamo? Said Sarah Bletchley. We don't really know who's Sarah Bletchley is probably someone, yeah, in the street. That maybe Clarissa knows. At the gates of Buckingham Palace, people looked up into the sky, and in this extraordinary silence and peace, bells struck 11 times, the sound fading up there among the birds. The airplane turned and raced exactly where it liked. There's always the airplane coming back again, the clock, Big Ben striking each hour of the day. So you see some pattern coming back. It says toffee, said a man, as the gray car went through the palace gates, and nobody saw it. Rezia Warren Smith, sitting by her husband's side on a seat in Regent's Park, looked up. Look, Septimus, she cried. For Dr. Holmes had told her to make her husband, who had nothing at all serious the matter with him, but what not quite his usual self, take an interest in things outside himself. So, thought Septimus, looking up, they are making signs to me? Not in actual words, that is. He could not read their language yet, but this beauty was clear enough. Tears filled his eyes as he looked at the words melting in the sky and presenting him in their extraordinary goodness. One shape after another of incredible beauty. Tears ran down his cheeks. They were advertising toffee, a woman told Rezia. Together they began to spell T-O-F-F-E-E, said the woman, and Septimus heard her rough voice close to his ear, which sent waves of sound running up to his brain. What a wonderful discovery that the human voice could bring trees to life. Thankfully, Rezia put her hand down heavily on his knee so that he was weighed down, or the sight of the trees rising and falling would have sent him bad. It would have sent him mad, sorry. But he would not go mad. He would shut his eyes. He would see no more. But the trees called to him. The leaves were alive. The trees were alive. And because they were connected with his body, when the branches stretched, he stretched too. A child cried. Far away, a dog barked. Septimus, said Rezia, and he jumped violently. People would notice. I'm going to walk to the fountain and back, she said, for she could bear it no longer. Dr. Holmes might say there was nothing at all serious the matter. She would rather he was dead. She could not sit beside him when he stared so hard and did not see her and made everything terrible. The sky and trees, children playing, dogs barking, all were terrible. And she could tell no one. Septimus has been working too hard, was all she could say to her own mother. To love makes one alone, she thought. Very powerful passage here to see how lonely Rezia feels and how hopeless she feels about Septimus' condition and the fact that it isolates her from the rest of the world, and the fact that she can't even confide in her family or anyone to talk about his illness, Septimus' illness, her husband's illness. So it must feel very hard for her to have to deal with this alone, because, as she said it twice, Dr. Holmes says there is nothing serious, nothing to worry about. She could tell nobody. No, not even Septimus now. Looking back, she saw him sitting in his old coat, alone on the seat, bent forward, staring. And it was cowardly for a man to say he would kill himself. But Septimus had fought in the war. He was brave. He was not Septimus now. He never noticed her. He was happy without her. Nothing could make her happy without him. She looked down at her hand, spreading her fingers. Her wedding ring was loose because she had grown so thin. It was she who suffered, but she had nobody to tell. Italy was far away, and the white houses and the room where her sister sat making hats, and the busy streets. In Milan, the streets were crowded. Every evening, people walking, laughing, not half alive, like people here. Laughing, not half alive, like people here, looking at a few ugly flowers. For you should see the gardens in Milan, she said aloud. But to whom? There was nobody. Her words faded. I'm alone, she cried by the fountain in Regent's Park. She was his wife, married years ago in Milan, and would never tell anyone that he was mad. She turned, and there he was, still sitting alone in his old coat, staring, talking aloud. Septimus listened to the voice which spoke to him, telling him he had come to save society. Men must not cut down trees, change the world. No one kills from hatred. He wrote such things down on the backs of envelopes. He waited. He listened. A bird on the fence opposite sang, Septimus, Septimus, 4 or 5 times, and then loud words in Greek about life beyond a river where the dead walk. white things were gathering behind the fence, but he could not bear to look. Evans was behind the fence. Evans was behind the fence. "What are you saying?" said Rezia, suddenly sitting down by him. Interrupted again. She was always interrupting. "They must get away from people," he told her, jumping up. "Over there, in the chairs beneath a tree." There they sat down under the tree. "Look," she begged him, pointing at the group of little boys carrying cricket things. For Dr. Holmes had told her, again, to make him notice real things, go to the theatre or play cricket. That was a nice game, just right for her husband. "Look," she repeated. "Look," commanded the voice that told me he was the greatest of all men, taken from life to death to suffer forever. But he did not want it. He cried with a wave of his hand. "Oh, look," Rezia begged him, for he should not talk aloud himself outdoors. But what was there to look at? A few sheep, that was all. Could they tell her the way to Regent's Park tube station? Maisie Johnson wanted to know. She had only arrived from Edinburgh 2 days ago. And not this, okay, so Maisie Johnson is this woman passing. She had only arrived. So you see, you jump from one character to another as well. She had only arrived from Edinburgh 2 days ago. Not this way, over there, Rezia cried, waving her way in case she saw Septimus. It's interesting to see how Rezia is so self-aware about other people's look, and she's so worried about the fact that people would see him acting strange, and she doesn't want that. She doesn't want people to see her husband acting weird. Not this way, over there, Rezia cried, waving her away in case she saw Septimus. Both of them seemed strange. So in the end, it's quite funny because Maisie Johnson is actually thinking that those two, or both of them, are actually weird, and not just Septimus. So it's interesting to see how Rezia's behavior makes her acting weird as well. She's so worried about what people would think about Septimus that she's acting herself strangely. Yeah. Everything seemed very strange. She was only 19 and in London for the first time, to start a job at her uncle's business, and now, walking through Regent's Park, this couple on the chairs gave her quite a shock. She thought she would never forget it, even in 15 years' time. The young woman jumping and waving her hands seemed foreign. The man looked so awfully odd. Perhaps they were quarreling? Perhaps they were parting forever? Parting, they were separating, yeah. Something was wrong. Maisie knew, and it had quite upset her. Above her, the airplane raced, away and away, until it was nothing but a bright spark. Then it rushed out over St. Paul's Cathedral, strange and silent. Not a sound could be heard up there over the noise of the traffic, and now from behind the airplane, going up and up, straight up, in pure joy, poured with smoke, writing a T an O, an F. And that's the end of section 2 or part 2. Yeah, tell me, what do you think about this section, which is mainly focused on Septimus Warren Smith and his wife, Rezia. And how tough it is for her to live with him and not being able to speak to anybody and find some comfort. It is a very very sad chapter, not chapter, but sad section here that we've just read. Don't hesitate to give me your impressions, your comments, your impressions on the your feelings, because impressions it's a different meaning, but your feelings about this section of the book. I hope that you enjoyed this live reading. And again, thank you so much for being present again, Katie, as always. And thank you for watching. If you're watching this on replay, of course, thank you for watching this video and being interested in reading Mrs. Dalloway. And also make sure that you subscribe to the book club membership to be part of the book club and join this literary journey and practice your English. Kitty is saying, for me, a bit difficult to follow the plot. I have to read again. Yes, I can understand that it might be a little bit tricky to read. And the good thing with the book is that you can also, once you buy the book, the physical book, you can have access to the audiobook and you can listen again the reading if listening to the reading helps you to understand the book. But you can also, of course, reread the section in your own time, at your own pace, and maybe spend a bit of or take more time to look for the words that you don't know, or maybe the phrases. Oh yeah, so by all means, yeah, if you feel like you need to reread it, then that's a good thing to do. And it's a good thing that it's only a couple pages, so it's something that you can easily do and go back to it. And of course, Katie, we will definitely speak more about it. That's the whole point of the online of the Zoom meetup that I host on once a week, is that if there are parts of the book that you didn't understand, then it's the time to be able to discuss the book and to have a better understanding of the book. So I encourage you definitely to join the book club and have the opportunity to share your thoughts and also ask any questions that you have about the book, and I'll do my best to answer you and guide you in the reading and in the understanding of the book. Yes, I will hear that again this evening with Kitty. Yes, that's gonna be a yeah, that's good. If you feel you need to reread, then do what feels good to you. Definitely. Yay. Thank you so much. I wish you a beautiful end of the day. Have a beautiful evening. And I'll see you tomorrow for section 3 of the book at 2 p.m. Central European Time on Instagram Live. Bye-bye.